So the formula started out as, insecure, unhappy me, trying to share really it was my own learning process. I didn't frame it that way. Now I feel like it's much more of me sharing like what I'm learning, what I've gone through, and sharing other people, like conversations with other people, hoping that somebody will listen and maybe something sounds like, I've feel that way, or I've gone through that too, or I have, we talked about relationships like 20, 30 episodes ago, and, maybe I've dealt with something like that. Here's something maybe I can try, or maybe it sparks some idea that they have that they would like to either stuff they'd like to add or remove from their own lives.
So how was the swing event? Was it this past weekend, Trevor?
Yeah. The I don't know if it was this last weekend or the weekend before, but it was really fun. I felt very rusty because as we were talking before, I felt like I was good at swing dancing until this last weekend, but then I realized it had been, a few months since since either the first time I was in Prague this year or when I was in Bangkok, which was, I don't know, that was like 4 or 5 months ago. So I'm a little rusty.
It's not every day that you can hear somebody say that they went swing dancing in Bangkok?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So how was that? What was that experience about?
Swing dancing in Bangkok was a lot of fun. I had actually planned to meet up with some friends that I met. This is going to sound I'm like name dropping countries like crazy. But I met these German friends of mine in Bucharest at a swing dance festival there. And we actually met up again in Bangkok, and I danced with them, Richard and Nelly, in Bangkok. And that was really, really fun. They had like their own little like swing dance club there. So it was pretty cool. As I'm just saying this stuff, I'm just like, man, my life's weird. Because I'm saying like, I was in Bucharest swing dancing and then Bangkok, and God knows what's next. So.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we love about you as we follow you in your adventures is that we don't know what's next. Mm-hmm. So can I lead into that question for you?
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself? So one of the things that I ask is, where do you see yourself in the next 18 months? So a year and a half from now, not even just a year, but in a year and a half from now, where do you see yourself?
That's a good question. And I'm going to fill you guys in on what's going on here. So I was really struggling to come up with the idea for the 100th episode. So I felt like Cat would be a Cat Cantrill. From a few of the previous episodes, would be a great person to come in and ask me do like a reverse interview, ask me some questions. So that's what you're hearing right now. So thank you, Kat, for doing that. So to answer your question, I'm not sure. 18 months from now. I want to spend the next year. So my plan at this moment in time is to spend winter. So I'm thinking like a location standpoint, maybe not like a goal standpoint, but maybe I'll do both. But location wise, go back to Southeast Asia. There's like a cool motorcycle ride I'd like to do across Vietnam, and then go back to Thailand, hit up a few other places there, and then make my way to Western Europe, whether that's through Central Asia and Eastern Europe by like train, bus, whatever, or fly over to just get to Amsterdam in some way, or the Netherlands, because I'm working on getting a visa there. So then continue traveling from the Netherlands. Hopefully a goal I made for myself, which I'm still questioning how realistic it is, but it would be to be like full-time podcasting and writing. It was within 2 years of the start of this year. So I guess that's 18-ish months from now.
Yeah. And think about how much your life has changed, even since we first met, which was probably about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I think when you and I met for the first time, And to me, that's one of the things that I have loved watching you is really transform and morph into who you are now. And that's why I asked that question like 18 months from now, because I guarantee you when you and I first met, you would have never been in the position that you are now. If I would have asked you that same question when we first met. So let me ask you this. I'm going to go back. Let's go back.
Okay.
18 months from like in the past. What inner dialogue were you having that prompted you to take that very first step and that very first journey on your first excursion?
Yeah. Oof. So as you're saying that, thinking back at that moment in time, I think in the back of my mind, I was thinking best case scenario. Like, I don't know if I even believed it, but like best case scenario, I'd be doing almost exactly what I'm doing now. Like to like the 99th percentile. Like that's when I would lay awake at night, that's what I would think about. Or when, I guess dreaming, when I'd be dreaming about like my best possible future, this was pretty much it, which is scary to, to say and think about. But, yeah, I mean, my inner dialogue was always like, I was scared shitless of doing this. And I guess, a lot of other things that I had really tried on hadn't worked out, and I didn't really feel very satisfied. I mean, I remember even like looking in the mirror and I couldn't even like look myself in the eye and be proud of where I was. And so it was like, I just was kind of miserable where I was at. I wasn't miserable with any of the people in my life or anything like that. I mean, I've always been very lucky in regards to friends and relationships and family. It was more that like this feeling that this is it. Like this is what my future holds, at my present and my future. I just always thought that there'd be something more exciting, something, something different. And I guess what really pushed me is like just things weren't going well or the way that I wanted them to in these other areas. So, I mean, I went through a breakup, and then I remember just going to work every day and there's like a lot of arguments going on with the coworker, and I was just like, oh my God, like I might not know what's coming next, like if I do this, but there's no way it's any worse than what this is now. At least from my perspective of my own life and what I wanted out of it. And I think a lot of people assume that I just took a jump, like just said screw it and jumped off a cliff with like my eyes closed. But really what happened was I was invited overseas with a friend of mine. And in the back of my mind, it was like a test almost. So it was like a 2-week test. Could I get overseas and be okay by myself? Because him and his wife weren't going to be there for part of it. And could I like make it? And could I keep working and stay focused? And so I did that little test. And by the time I got on the plane back, like I was really tempted to skip the flight back and just not come back. But I felt like I had responsibilities and things like that to come take care of. And as soon as I got on the plane back, I just knew that I was like, I'm going to sell my shit and I'm leaving. I'm giving myself 3 months, no matter what happens. 3 months, I'm leaving. And then within like the next 2 weeks, like all hell broke loose. I just had, I had a car breakdown. I had, so I was doing some freelancing then, and a client, that I was working with, that was a large percentage of my income and future income, basically like paused our contract. And I was just like, oh shit, like how am I going to have any money to do this? And I was just like no matter how much, if I have $5 in the bank, like I have a plane ticket and I'm leaving. Like that's all I know. And that's, I'm just sticking to it. And then everything kind of worked out. It was almost like once I made the decision, I kind of had the opportunity to back out of it if I wanted to with good enough reasons. And I just stuck with it. And then, and then I left. And when I left, I was like, I'll give myself until Christmas time. I'll come back at Christmas. And, basically this is another small test. So the first one was 2 weeks. This one's 4 months. And then this last one was basically 9 months. So it's like incremental. And then next time I'm going to do probably longer, hopefully longer, but maybe I'll swing back just for a couple of weeks or something like that. So did I answer your question? I don't even remember what you asked. I'm just rambling.
Yes, you answered my question.
Cool.
So so much has happened in the last year and a half since we've met and you've been on these travels. But before that, before you and I met, so this is your 100th episode, and you have interviewed amazing people. Well, first off, just from if somebody is tuning into this podcast for the first time, I'm going to go back even further and ask, what drove you to start the podcast? And why is it named what it's named?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure curious minds want to know. And do you feel the influence that you've received from those that you've been interviewing made an impact on your life so that it prompted you to make these travels?
So I'll answer the last one first. Okay. Yes. I remember I interviewed, I feel like we're like virtual friends at this point. Colin Wright. He's been traveling full time for the better part of, I think, at least 10 years or close to 10 years. And I had him on fairly early on. I've had him on a few times. And I went back and listened to that episode in preparation, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do for the 100th episode, and just listening to him talk about it and kind of thinking through how I've done things and where my life has kind of gone. I feel like in a weird way, even though I didn't directly credit him for it, a lot of the stuff that him and I talked about actually really shaped where, like, the decisions I made and where I, like, how maybe I've become more intentional about things. So yeah, I would say that was a big part. And Peter Alwood as well. He traveled, losing my voice. He traveled full time with his family. Is like 3 or 4. Sorry, Peter. 3 or 4 kids. 3. And him and his wife and his kids. And just talking with those guys about their experiences and how it shaped their perception of the world and themselves, and it just really made them different. I wouldn't say the best version of themselves, but more of like very strong in their beliefs, their belief in themselves, making sure that like the time, like you have to be very specific how you travel, because if you do it in the wrong ways that aren't right for you, you'll be absolutely miserable. And when you do those things, you will definitely remember what they are and you will not do them again. Like I remember Peter talked about like his kids going hungry, and how everyone would get really hangry. And then finally he was just like, he like went into Whole Foods and bought a cooler and just filled it up with fresh foods. And then all of a sudden everyone was like, traveling was much nicer because they could just keep snacking the whole time. So I would say that, yeah, they influenced me quite a bit in that aspect, without even me really knowing it at the time. It was just kind of like programming in like the back of my head, and I was remembering all this stuff. And it's really cool listening to that again, and listening to the advice that they were giving listeners, or really what they were giving me, and how I've applied that since then. So how this all got started, because this is a secret of mine that I don't think anybody really knows, but I never did an episode 1 because I didn't really know why I was starting the show. And I was just like, and welcome to episode number 2, and it's our first guest.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so I never did an intro episode at all. I never did anything. I just started it. And yeah, because I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to start this thing. I don't really know what to say. So I'm just going to like start interviewing people and see what happens. So if I think back to why I actually started it, though, this was a few years ago. I've been doing this for like 2.5 years. That's quite some time. At least for for a project I've stuck with. And I remember I was working on a startup. I left the startup. I went out to Colorado. It was kind of a funny story. I booked the Airbnb. It ended up being at like this hippie commune. I didn't really know that when I booked it. I was just like, oh, damn, $25 a night. I'm in.
It's totally commune.
Yeah. I didn't read the description. I just was like, it's in Boulder in the country. I'm down. Let's go.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, so it was fun. So I remember I showed up there and it was like, I wasn't really comfortable hugging people at that point in time. Any type of like, any contact with people, I was just like, I was not as comfortable with as I am now. Mm-hmm. And I just remember that I got there and this like 50-year-old dude, and I was just like, hey, I'm Trevor. And there's like all these people everywhere. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like this tech guy from Iowa, not having any idea what's going on. And this dude, his name, I want to say his name was like Billy. I know his first name was Billy. I can't remember his last name. But I go to shake his hand. I'm like, I'm Trevor. I'm like all like nice buttoned up, and I'm like here to stay in the Airbnb. And apparently there's like 100 other people here too. And he's like, brother. We don't shake hands. And he's not wearing a shirt. He just gives me this big sweaty bear hug. And I'm like, okay. And then, I just was like, all right, I'm here for like 2 weeks. So, yeah, I unpacked my stuff. I remember there was like a creek that runs through there. It's like the South Boulder Creek. And, I brought my notebooks with me. I didn't have cell service then. And I just remember I sat out there and I was just like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm like, I thought I wanted all this stuff. I thought, it would make me happy, like pursuing these things. I thought that, I needed to, I don't know. I thought that the things that would make me happy, getting them, they actually made me kind of miserable. And I was sitting out there and I was just like, man, there's two things that I knew after I spent my couple weeks out there, like hiking, because I would sit out and like look at the stars, just sit out by the creek and read and write as much as I possibly could. And it was really good for like my mental health at that point in time. And the two things that I knew I wanted to do, well, three, I've really only started doing two so far, but one was I wanted to be able to work from anywhere, because I had been like stuck in an office for the last couple of years working my ass off. And the second was, so I wanted to travel. And then the second was like, I have no idea like what to do from here forward to like be happy. Like I don't know what that even means. Because clearly I had a very strong misunderstanding of it. And
I think we all do.
Yeah.
I think we all have a misunderstanding of what happiness is.
Yeah.
Or what we're taught of what happiness is.
Yeah.
There's a difference, yeah.
I think that's a good point. It's like people who are unhappy teaching other people how to be happy. Which, nothing against people that are teaching you those things. It's just more, they want what's best for you, but they're just teaching you what they know. So I just decided I wanted to go like find people and either like, I was thinking like do classes with them, do podcasts, do whatever it was. So it was like selfishly so I could learn from them, but it was also to share that information with other people as I was doing it. So I just, and then the other thing was I wanted to write specifically fiction, which I haven't really done. I've done, no one's seen it. It's a point of, I don't know. It's scary to me to share my fictional writing. It's something that I really would like to do. I just haven't done it yet. Knowing me, I'll do it eventually.
Why?
Why haven't I shared it? Because I don't think it's very good yet. Maybe that's just, I don't know. Maybe that's just an excuse not to show it to anyone. And you're nodding. Yeah. All right. Stop being right all the time, Kat.
Well, it's because it's from one artist to another, because what I do is a form of art, and writing is a form of art. Anytime that we have projects, or I kind of feel the same way about my choreography when I put together my shows. It's like, I feel it's like my soul on a stage, and it's being open for ridicule, right? Where audience members can come and just tear it apart. So it's the idea of being vulnerable and understanding that people are going to judge you, and that can be really hard. But the only way that you're going to become a stronger artist is to consistently make yourself vulnerable. And you just have to it's like ripping off that Band-Aid. There is no time, or like having a baby, or all these like reasons that people are like, they're always waiting for the perfect opportune time to become vulnerable, to make these life decisions. But there's never, you've even said it yourself, there's never the perfect time. So what's the worst case scenario if you did release your fiction writing? What's the worst thing that's going to happen to you?
I mean, no one would read it, because they maybe would read a little bit and it's terrible. And then, I don't know, that's pretty much it. There's nothing really that bad that would happen. Maybe it's just it's probably the idea that I want to be an author at some point, that by not doing it, I get to hold on to that like fantasy of me being really good at it someday. By not doing it, I don't know.
Yeah, but how are you going to get really, what do they say? In order to be a master at your craft, it takes like 20 years of practice. You're not practicing, you're writing, but for you, practicing is really putting it out there and allowing others to give you whatever that feedback is. And when you get feedback, it's up to you on how you take that feedback, just like your podcast. People could be listening to this podcast and being like, oh, this is full of shit, I'm not going to. Moving on. Or it's the opposite, where people are like, oh, I totally look forward to every time you release a new episode. The people that don't listen, do you really pay attention to what they're doing? No, I don't pay attention. I mean, no, not it's
at
like
all.
It's like an unsubscribe to your email list.
Yeah.
And don't read it. If you don't want it, then don't read it. If you don't want to read it, don't read it.
Sorry, I'm like going back and forth.
I know, it's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
I'm super excited. Because now I have a new thing to be like, hey.
No. I don't like this anymore. I changed my mind.
Never mind. Scrap the 100th episode.
Yeah, we're starting over. I need a volunteer to interview me and not ask me hard questions. So back to Colorado. Those three things. And I just got started just interviewing friends, people I knew, people I'd met, and I was kind of shocked and blown away when I messaged like people I looked up to, I had never met before. I had like kind of a shitty website and 10 episodes out with like 4 reviews or something, and people would say yes, and I was like, what, why? And I mean, I don't know, that was a really eye-opening moment for me, because I mean, at this point I feel as if I really, really want someone on my podcast, or to get in front of them, like I can. I don't really have any. So weird. It's like I'm afraid of releasing like a short story, but then when it comes to reaching out to just about anybody in the world, I'm like, I have no fear of that. So it's bizarre. I don't know what to make of that, but
well, I know it's because you feel like your fiction stories are you. It's a part of you. You're putting a part of yourself out there, versus just having the confidence to be able to ask. It's different. It's not personal. Because when you go and ask somebody to be on your podcast and they say no, I mean, maybe there's a smidge of you that says it, that takes it personally, but the majority of you is like, that's okay.
Yeah.
I have 10 other people that I can ask versus you really putting your heart and soul in something and putting it out to have other people read and have opinions on.
Yeah. And even when people have bad opinions, though, it's really not that bad. And I know this, maybe it's just more of, just me doing it, I think is pretty much it. All right. Well, I'll send you my first one when it's done. So yeah, I'm trying to remember. Your question was something.
Why is it called The Formula?
Oh, it's called The Formula because I was just trying to figure out like my own personal formula. That's what I think now. Let me go back to then. Because I'm really embarrassed by some of the stuff I may have said at that point in time. Because I look back at that and I'm like, I'm going to teach you I don't think I ever said the word teach, but I'm going to share this formula for all these different things.
Yes.
And I feel like that was like I see other people doing that now and I'm like, dude, I don't even know. You definitely don't know either. None of us really, it kind of annoys me when people claim to know, like, sign up for this class on e-commerce and I'm going to teach you how to work from home and make millions of dollars and never have to work again and be the happiest you've ever been and get the car and the wife and all that stuff. And it's like, well, sorry, but maybe that's not what this person really wants or needs, So it's, I don't know. I have a little embarrassment about how I maybe framed it at first and the way I would talk about things because I feel like I was extremely insecure then. So when I put stuff out, it maybe came across in a way that was more, I don't know, not really. I don't know. I didn't feel like it came from a place of like, hey, I'm going to share this journey with you. It came from more of like let me show you or let me tell you. And I feel like that's really changed into like the more I've learned, the more I've realized like how little, like it's so funny, the more I learned, the more I realized like how little I know, how little I know and how I'm extremely uncomfortable telling people what will make them happy. I can kind of tell them what won't make them happy. And that's like pursuing things that other people think are important instead of what they think is important. But I can't say like, you need to go to the gym 5 times a week and lift weights and you need to make $1 million this year and then you're going to be happy. It's like, I don't know that. Only you know, or whoever's listening knows what will. So the formula started out as, insecure, unhappy me trying to share what really it was my own learning process. I didn't frame it that way. Now I feel like it's much more of me sharing like what I'm learning, what I've gone through, and sharing other people, like conversations with other people, hoping that somebody will listen and maybe something sounds like, I've feel that way or have gone through that too, or I have, we talked about relationships like 20, 30 episodes ago, and, maybe I've dealt with something like that. Here's something maybe I can try, or maybe it sparks some idea that they have that they would like to either stuff they'd like to add or remove from their own lives. I almost just labeled this episode like episode number 100 of the formula. There is no formula. It's like everyone's is going to be kind of unique a bit. What makes someone else really happy, if you copy and paste it to your own life, you can pretty much guarantee it's probably not going to make you happy either, because you're two different people with very different backgrounds and values and hobbies and, comfort levels. So yeah, that's why it was called the formula then. And now I kind of like the name a bit more than I did at the beginning. And I like the path that it's on now too, because I never want to frame myself as like, I am a guru. I know I'm going to tell you all these things. It's more like, we're all in this together. We're all trying to do the best we can. I'm going to share some stuff that I've learned. If you find it to be helpful, please go try it. Don't look at it like gospel. I want to talk to other people who've also learned some things, and maybe you'll try some of what they do, and you'll kind of come up with your own formula, I guess, for, whatever an intentional or fulfilling life looks like for you.
So in your past 100 podcasts, do you have, so one of the things that you keep talking about and referring to is fear and being uncomfortable and being lost and kind of just figuring out your way. Have you, in the past interviews, have you ever felt, were you highly intimidated or really afraid to interview these people? And if you were, what did you do to help yourself overcome that fear?
So most of the episodes that I did, I was definitely intimidated by pretty much everyone. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like because from the place I was coming from at that point in time, really a lot of like just being really unsure of myself. Anybody that had some answers, I just figured they were, they had it more figured out than I did. So yeah, I was definitely intimidated. I just tried to do my homework, really. Like to prepare, I would usually try to have like a list of questions, sometimes I sent them to the guests, sometimes I forgot. But it's like, it's just the only thing I could really do to prepare was, it was just doing my homework. And then, even still, recently, this interview will come out after this one. I interviewed this woman in Nepal named Maggie Doyle. She started how do I put it? It's a school and an organization called Blink Now, and it's grown into like a bunch of other different areas, like a women's health center. And, she's just done some amazing stuff. And I did this interview with her, and, she thankfully was like really cool and like I say, a really nice person. But the first like 3 minutes I was on the call with her, I was like, I was nervous because, she was like 2015 CNN Hero of the Year. And I'm just a dude that lives out of a bag from Iowa. So I still feel like I get a little nervous, but then once I get into it and then I realize that the other person is just a normal person too, then it's fine, but it's definitely doing the homework that helps. Cause if you get on, imagine if somebody interviewed you and they're like, so what does vitality do? Tell me, and they
I've been there.
What's that?
I've been there.
And you're probably just like, God damn it. You couldn't take 5 minutes to even couldn't even Google my name. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if somebody actually looked at Vitality and they're like, okay, so you've been running this for like, how long have you been running it?
Over 6 years.
Yeah. So like, you've been running Vitality for over 6 years. You've helped all these women and you've gone on these retreats in these different places, and then they kind of go into some questions after that. Doesn't it really like loosen up the whole interview process because it seems like they care? Completely.
And I would say, I think that's one of you have this, because you and I have been on, I feel like it's a privilege. I do. Yeah. That we've been on 2 podcasts together. This is our 3rd. Mm-hmm. To me, immediately when that first time that we met and you started interviewing me, there is something about you. There's something very relatable. You make it to where I would have never guessed that you as the interviewer, that you were scared or fearful, or you absolutely played the part. Mm-hmm. I can say that now. Yeah. That you have this way of making people feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. And when you show up, you show up. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many times where people want something from you or have the desire, but they're not willing to completely show up for you. Yeah. And I think that for you, that's one of the enduring qualities about you, is that you do show up. Because and I have always gotten the feeling that you really genuinely care about what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the other people that you've interviewed have felt the same way. That's why I think your podcasts have been so successful, because there is that, you definitely feel that from you when you're interviewing. And I think that people recognize and appreciate that so much, especially now where it seems that people just don't pay attention much to the people that are really trying to make a difference and change the world. And you're one person who really is seeking out those people who are making a difference and are making ripples and are wanting to share their formula, whether or not it's your formula or somebody else's formula. And I think that what you're doing is a gift. I think you are extremely talented in what you do. So let me ask you this. Have you ever done an interview with somebody and then have completely scrapped it?
Yes. Yes, I have. Several, actually, quite a few. There were some, like there's one that so typically it was mutual that we scrapped it. I'm not going to name names on them, but I think of one that I really wanted to scrap that I ended up releasing, that I was like kind of pissed that I released them later on. Well, because one was an early one, and this fucking guy, pardon my language, but this guy, we get done, and I thought the interview was really good, and I'm like, yeah, you've done a lot of public speaking and stuff. I've known this guy also. I knew him for like 4 or 5 years at a time. And I'm like, so man, what did you think? Do you have any advice for me, since you've done a lot of voice work and radio work and all this? What do you got for feedback? And he's just like, I'll just be blunt with you. He's like, you need to grow some fucking balls. I was like, what? And then he just berated me for like 10 minutes. And I was like, damn, dude. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. And then I just I wanted to delete the interview. Like, I just wanted to be done. Like, I was like, this guy, I actually took the feedback, like, not the harsh part of it, but the foundation of the feedback, that maybe I could be more confident in the questions I asked. I could be more sure of myself with maybe some answers I gave him when we were having like a back and forth. But I just was like, dude, like, is that necessary to give feedback like that? I don't really think so. And I feel like I'm kind of rewarding that behavior by still releasing the episode. But I listened to it after it was edited, and I felt like it had good content because he has a good story. But at the same time, I just was kind of like, hey, that's like the whole reason I struggle with doing more social media stuff, is because I see people like him and others putting out this persona that they are a specific way. And then when you actually see what it's like when the camera's not on them, it's not who they are as a person. It is a fake persona. Maybe you have some thoughts on that?
I'm sitting over here like, yeah. Yes, that's one of the things for me, I think, is a struggle being in the space that I'm in, is the more and more I move into more of a catalyst role for women. Mm-hmm. And really, that's always been one of my things, is walking the walk and talking the talk. Mm-hmm. And really, truly not having a persona, being the same person on and off camera. And it's very frustrating, I think, because sometimes you're punished for being authentic, which you were, because you were just being you. And granted, I think that that's valuable feedback. And I think that what you did was very adult of you, by the way.
Thank you.
And the fact that the fact that you released the episode, even though you probably, every part of you didn't want to do that, but still you shared his message with the world. And so I think that that's very admirable of you. But I think that that's one of the things that we fight the most, especially in an age of social media, where we know who these people are in real life, and we see their persona online. And so many times I want to like contact their followers and be like, really, this is not how this person is. And it's almost, sometimes I feel like that it's almost that I've been punished because I remain in that space and I don't go to that space. But like you've said before, the things that for us, when we go to bed at night, the things that keep us awake, that's not something that keeps me awake, because I know I'm just being me all the time.
Right. Yeah. And man, my new, I just brought a new person on my team, and we were talking about this, and she's like, I need you to like put more of yourself out there. And I was like, God damn it. I know. I'm like, I know I need to do that. And, she's like, what are you so worried about? And I'm like, I will show you what I'm worried about. And I pulled up like several accounts of like people that I've met. Hopefully they're not listening. They're probably not. But I'm like, I know what these people are like in real life and their values. And then this is kind of the persona that they've built and that they show people. And I never want to be that. Like, I never want to be that. I'm pretty real. I mean, I feel like I don't know. I'm pretty much me all the time. Whether you love me or hate me, I'm pretty much the same. And her point she made was like, if you're just you and you just do this thing, like, it's going to come through and people are going to probably like it way more than this other stuff, because you're a likable person. You have good values. They might not, if they don't like you, they don't have to follow, right? This is like, they're probably not going to be your podcast listeners anyways, people that don't like it. But what it's going to do is it's going to help you get out in front of more people who will relate to what you're doing and what you're saying. And, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And yeah, I was just like, okay, damn it. All right, fine. I'll do the best I can.
So you had mentioned, on a personal note, about how you didn't like touch, like embracing. And I am a gigantic bear hugger. That's my, I've had women who have come into my wheelhouse who have never liked touch. And then after being around them for a while and consistently hugging them and loving on them, now it's gotten to a point where they'll chase me down being like, you didn't hug me. So what is it that changed from that point to now that you've become more touchable?
Touchable. That's funny. I would say, for one, being around those hippies for 2 weeks, they all hugged me pretty much nonstop. Well, not nonstop, but you know what I mean. That's how they would greet and say goodbyes. Like, I'll give you a hug. And I don't know. I mean, when I left, I walked up to everybody and gave them a hug. Like, it doesn't bother me now.
Why did it bother you?
Why did it bother me? I don't know. I mean,
is your family, is your family, are they touchers? Are they huggers family?
My family is not a hugging. My mom probably is, but everyone else I don't think is really. I mean, they're very much like, they're not a lot of sharers or either. They're not like sharers or big like touchy feely types. Like some families are just like, oh, group hug, and everybody's all piling on. Like it was not really like that growing up. But yeah, I mean, now, it doesn't really faze me at all. Only thing that does when people do awkwardly long hugs, I don't like that.
Yeah. One of those hugs where you're hugging and then you go to let go, but then they're still hugging you. Yeah. I don't mind those. You can do those. That's fine. I'll go in for the long hug. It doesn't bother me.
Okay. I'll trade you then. You can have all those.
Okay. So you said that you were getting your visa for the Netherlands. Is that your favorite place? Why are you getting your visa for there?
So that's a good question for a few reasons, really. I would say it is, I don't know if I have a favorite place, but they've got a lot of things there that I really like, which is, like the public transportation there is insanely good. I mean, you just walk around or you rent a bike or whatever. You have no issues. You can get to anywhere you need to go in like no time with no car, not even getting in a cab or anything, which is awesome. I love the people in the Netherlands. They're amazing. I've made some of my closest friends in the Netherlands. And they're people from, they're people who are Dutch, or I have a Hungarian friends, Italian friends, a couple Americans that I met there, German, I don't know, all kinds of people. And what I really like about it too is from what they're working on there, like humanitarian standpoint. I have kind of shifted a lot of my work outside of the podcast into humanitarian type stuff. And that's where I'd like to continue to go. And then so that's a big part of it. Like The Hague is one of the like capitals of like our centers for humanitarian organizations, NGOs, in the world. So that's going on there. Plus Amsterdam is like a big startup hub. So there's like a lot of tech and like hipster stuff going on there. So it's just like a cool city. There's like no crime really at all there. So there's just so many positive things. Plus you can get on a train there and end up anywhere in Western Europe or Europe in general within, a few hours, or, if you're going all the way to Eastern Europe, like 10, 12 hours. But it's a great place that, also thinking about if I want to have a relationship with my family, if they're going to visit me, if I move overseas, they're probably not going to come to like Albania or something. They might be a little timid about that, but I feel like I can convince them to come to the Netherlands. So I would say like my favorite places, like it's not my overall favorite place in the world. It's more of like a good place to live, a really, really good place to live. Like quality of life there is just off the charts awesome. Like, you're going there pretty soon, right? Yeah. You'll see what I mean. And favorite place, so, I think of 3 places in particular: Thailand, Bosnia, and Albania as like 3 of my main favorites. Of course, I love like Czech Republic and Austria and whatnot, but I think of the longest periods of time I really spent like Romania as well. But they tend to be places most people wouldn't think of as like the best ones, but for me, it's like the people made the place. And then, you can just get off the beaten path really easily, and no tourists. And there's nothing wrong with tourists necessarily, but it's just more of like, there's not quite a feeling in the world like standing on a mountain and, like it's not packed with people and it's just you up there, and you could do that in these places. So yeah, I'm excited for you to go to the Netherlands though. I think you'll really like it.
Yes, I'm excited too. You made it very, cause I think that's what you said when we had coffee. Mm-hmm. One day you were like, you really need to bring women to the Netherlands. And I was like, okay.
Just don't eat the
brownies.
I
think it's funny because literally the following week I had a call from a woman who was inquiring about my trip. And I was like, well, I need to figure out where am I going before I talk to her on the phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I'll just go Yeah, our conversation rang in my head. And I was like, oh, I think I'll just go there. And so I pitched it to her and she was like, I'm in. I was like, cool. Sweet, we're going. So what can your listeners expect? Because you kind of led into it. Mm-hmm. So we know where the first 100 episodes have been to this point. What can your listeners expect from you for the next 100?
Good question. I'll figure that out. No, I need to sort through that. No, I have a pretty good idea of, so if I would have said at the beginning that this is where I would have been after 100 episodes, like if I went back in time and I was like, dude, this is what you're going to be doing, or this is where you are, I'd have been like, get the fuck out of here. No, like, stop it. You're lying. This is not what's going to happen. I'd have been like, really? You think?
Me?
Yeah. I'm like, what? I would say, so for the next 100, I'm dropping all sponsors. This is the first time I've I've made this public. But I just I want to go the Patreon route. So I'm developing some materials on Patreon. Hopefully, we're working through a few different things. There's going to be like basically how I did like the last year, like the work and travel type of thing, like a guide for that we're putting together that will be available through either the website or Patreon, hopefully sooner than later. I don't have an exact release date on that, but if you keep an eye on the social, you should see. So that's a big one. Because I just really want to focus on making making content that people like, that's helpful, that people want to listen to, that they have, hopefully if it doesn't provide them any value, they don't listen to it. I don't think my voice sounds that good. So, so for the next 100, it'll be a combination of like I'll be doing some more travel stuff, which if you look at the last 20, 30 episodes, there's been a lot in there. Like in my interview with 01, my interview with different dance instructors I've had along the way, which those are really fun for me. What else? So travel, kind of doing more, like a lot of people are interested in how they can do the, like work-life balance type of thing while traveling, which isn't easy. It's not for everyone. I absolutely love it. So it can be a bit challenging when it's so tempting to go, like when you're in Eastern Europe, there's like Eastern European nightclubs you can go out to every night. It's very tempting to want to go. Or you're like on the beach and you can just go like kick it on the beach all day and not work. It's very tempting to do that. So I think that if you're not the type of person that can't say no, then this will probably be a very short-term thing for you. Or you have to develop that muscle to stay focused and get your work done. It's very motivating to get your work. Like once I get my work done, I can go hang out on one of like the most beautiful beaches I've ever seen. So I think doing some more with the work part. I don't want to do like digital nomad-y stuff because I think the internet calls them like bromads, where they're like, oh man, I've got my business and I've got my supermodels and I've got my money, and I'm just like, man, yeah, that sounds like fun, but that's not me, Mm-hmm. And then, so those two things, and then like, maybe some like life philosophy stuff where it's like, I've spent some time with like war survivors or people who, this interview I did with Maggie. Just talking with her about why she decided to, she was backpacking across Nepal and just stopped, she just was like, all right, I'm going to open up a school for these kids that are homeless and help them get off the streets. And it's like life stuff like that where, something happens where it changes your perception on something, and, less people maybe that have a huge following and more people that have interesting things to say or to share. And to really, I guess that third piece is probably more like intentional living or intentional working instead of just like, there's nothing wrong with people who want to build like a big company and all that stuff. I'm sure I'll still talk to some of those people, but it's more, I'm not going to be seeking out folks who, they're like, well, I'm the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I'm going to tell you how to intentionally live. It's like, that's probably not who I'll be interviewing at this point in time. It's going to be more like the people who, like somebody who's maybe got a few kids that they've had this like traveling lifestyle with a family for a few years. It'd be really interesting to hear how and why they balance that, and maybe what like an average 20-something-year-old person could learn from them about decision making and how to deal with maybe the stress of traveling with the family, or I don't know. So that's kind of the direction more it's going. And then the next 100, who knows after that? I don't know, Kat. That's all I got so far.
So you've come back home and you go to these events and people are telling you that you are living their dream. And either that or they say, I can never do what you do, or I want to do what you do, but I'm afraid. So when people tell you these things, what advice? So if your listeners are listening to your stories and being like, I would love to do what he's doing, I just couldn't, or consistently making excuses on why they're not living the life that they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
What do you tell these people?
Well, first I get very uncomfortable. And then after that, I don't know. I mean, I'm not, because I think back to before I even left the country for the first time, and what I would have needed to be told, or somebody would have said to me to get them to understand that it's the scariest part is just like buying the plane ticket. That's probably like not like buying the plane ticket, you know, like, but it's more of the like, all right, I've committed, I've put money down. Oh my God. Like that part where you've like sat down, booked the ticket, and now you're like, I have a date, I'm leaving. And so it's, I guess I would say if I, talking to those people, I'm trying to think of even what I've said to them. Most of the time I'm just like, man, you can do this too. Like, I don't feel like I'm special or more special than anybody else. I don't really think that it's something that is that far out of most people, especially people who can work remotely, from their reality. And even people who don't work remotely, like, I don't think it's removed from their reality to do short-term trips or things like that. I guess I would just say, like, I'm like, it sounds so, I feel like it sounds kind of like not as empathetic as I could be, but it's like, this isn't as, like, the scariest part is in your head. Like, the scariest part is in your head. You are completely capable of doing this. And I know that most of my American listeners aren't going to want to hear this, but most Americans are very afraid of things that we have no need to be afraid of. Like going to these places, I mean, people are there all the time. Millions of people live in a lot of these places and they don't die every day, Like I think there's some fear of that as well. It's like, is it safe in these places? Is it safe for me to go alone? Like, are people going to try to, rob me, whatever? And that's not the reality that I've found really anywhere, is that it's actually very safe. People are very accommodating. They treat you like a guest in most of these places. Unless you're a jerk, then they'll probably be an asshole, but that's kind of your own fault. And you see that as well. But I guess I would just tell them, like, you don't have to go for a year or 2 years or 3 years or anything like that. Maybe it's just, can you do like a week? Like, don't sell all your shit. Don't commit to this without trying. You don't have to jump all in. I think that's what goes through a lot of people's minds, is they just have this fantasy where, like, man, one day I'm just going to sell all my shit and buy a one-way ticket. I'm like, dude, what if you hate it though? What if you hate it? That sounds like terrible. Try it out first. I mean, it's like, do you buy or do anything that's major without like testing it first? So I would say go on like a little micro tests. Like, are you okay traveling alone? I mean, it'll be exciting and difficult at first, because you kind of have to get used to your own company, and you'll find out really quickly how happy you are with yourself when you spend a lot of time alone. And that's a whole another thing. But I don't know. I think it's really important that if someone is out there thinking of doing this, and they're thinking that, that's something that they would dream about, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. It can be a very simple, like, okay, well, I'm just going to set an alarm or a notification on Skyscanner, and to this region of the world, for these dates. And I'm just going to, when a sale pops up on a plane ticket, I'm just going to buy a round trip ticket and go. And I'm going to go for a week. And then after that week's up, I will decide what I want to do from there. Maybe you want to come back and sell all your shit and go for a year, 2 years, or however long. Or maybe they will go and be like, okay, the week was good. Maybe next time I'll do like a month. Or maybe I'm just happy doing a week every now and then. And then, yeah, so it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Just try it out. Don't just sit on the sidelines and think about how awesome it would be to try these things. Just go try it.
I think people think it's all or nothing, right? They don't understand that there's actually steps to, just like you said, on your first adventure, it was 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think that travel is something that everyone should experience. And one of the things that I teach is we work in 2 different spaces as animals and as humans. We work in a space of love, or we work in a space of fear. There's no in between. So when people are saying those things, it's fear-based, and it's natural because we're animals and we want to protect ourselves. We're not having to run from T-Rexes anymore. We're not in fear of our lives. So we're creating these constant scenarios in our head
mm-hmm.
of what we should be fearful of. And it's just ourselves protecting ourselves. And for what I do and what you've done is that you've worked through a space of love, of loving yourself, of being like, this is something that I really want to do. And it's really important to me. And so this is where I'm going to go. And I'm going to love myself. I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to allow the fear just to melt away. And I'm going to work through this space. And look where it's brought you. If you were so fearful of all of those things, you would be exactly in the same position than you were
mm-hmm.
a year and a half ago. And I think that that's the only way that we can build confidence in ourselves as humans is to consistently make ourselves uncomfortable. Don't you think?
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely agree. And I don't want to make it sound like I wasn't afraid when I left, because I was terrified. When I left the first time I wasn't as scared. The second time I was like, I've never even lived outside of the state of Iowa, and I'm about to live out of a goddamn backpack for the foreseeable future. I might have cried a little. I can admit that, right? This is a safe space. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, that's. I'm like, I look back at that moment and I'm like, God damn it. Like, you're crying. And then like how awesome it ended up being. I'm like, dude, it was fine. Like, it's like, calm down. It's going to be okay. There was something else. Oh man, I can't remember now. There's something else I was going to say that popped up while you were talking. And I think it was, something along the lines of, yeah, we talked about the all or nothing.
Fear versus love.
Yeah. Oh, it was before that. Mm-hmm. I can't remember now. That's okay. Yeah. I don't know. What other questions do you have? What else do you want to talk about?
So what kind of kid were you in high school?
Oh my God. This is not a question I want to answer. Yeah. I think there's a picture of me somewhere.
Of it.
Which one?
I don't know. You posted one on Facebook.
Oh yeah, my high school yearbook picture.
Yes.
That I looked fine in that picture, but you didn't see me in some others where, oh my. So there's like a class photo, and I would say I probably wasn't very well liked for the most part. I didn't think I really feel like I had a ton of friends. Maybe some of it was in my head, but
most likely.
Yeah, but if you look at who I am now versus then, I had like long hair that would like hang over my eyes. Mm-hmm. And there's this class picture where I have like everyone's like smiling and stuff. I'm like sitting on the end, I had like my hood up, and I was just so unhappy to be there, and just like, I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, yeah, I still vividly remember that day and like those feelings and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I read a ton. I was kind of a loner, and I don't know. I was always playing around with tech stuff. People would always ask me to burn them CDs. And then when I got older in high school, I used to have tons of hobbies. Like I played piano. I was in martial arts. I was a first degree black belt in Taekwondo. I placed in a few like sparring tournaments. So that was cool. And yeah, I mean, I did a lot of stuff, but then when I got older, I ended up like quitting everything just because I wanted to work and I wanted to party. And I remember I sat down with in an interview with a few other friends of mine a while back, and they're like, yeah, you know, when I went to college, I didn't party, didn't do anything. I was too busy like working on all this stuff. And I was like, oh shit. Like I was not drinking either. That's not true. I just didn't really know what I wanted. Actually, I knew what I wanted, but I was always told that I wouldn't make any money doing it, or I wouldn't, I had one teacher tell me, like, I wanted to be an author. I wanted to write, because I remember how much reading these books impacted my life, like my perspective on life. Maybe that's what pushed me to travel and to dream of it, is reading these things. And, yeah, I mean, I was told I just remember always being told like, oh, you need to do this or don't do this or whatever. And it was never like in alignment with what I felt like I really wanted to do. And, I didn't know anyone that had ever done anything other than these boxes, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with them if that's what you intentionally choose to do. It is not what I wanted to do. It is not what I felt compelled to do at that point in time. It still isn't at all. And yeah, so I just like tried to force myself into one of those boxes, and it ended up with me like getting, going to college and getting like kicked out after 2 years because I basically stopped attending class and was just, there was other stuff going on. Like I had some personal things with a couple of friends pass away, and so all those things together kind of added up to me not being a very good student for a couple of years. So does that answer your question about my high school?
So do you have, in the last 100 episodes, do you have your most favorite episode that you've done?
That's like asking if I have a favorite child.
I know. Are there a few that stand out? Are there a few episodes that stand out to you?
Yeah, definitely. There are a few that really stand out. I felt like the last one you and I did, I felt like was very, I liked the one that you and I did originally, but the last one just felt like it was much more, it was less of like an interview and it was more fun.
Yeah.
That's what I remember about it. So that one stands out. The one I did with 01, the Bosnian War survivor, that one was intense. It was great. That was a life-changing experience for me, so I was glad I could share that conversation with him. The one with Colin Wright, that one, without knowing it, that probably propelled most of this. There's a few that I did. So most of them, I felt like I walked away from them changed somehow, except for a small handful where I felt as if the people just kind of came on to really pitch their stuff, and they didn't really give me, they didn't really share anything other than like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. This is how awesome, like, this is our product, this is what we're working on. And I was just like, I don't know. It's like, yeah. It's like, sorry. I'm like, well, nothing to be sorry for. It's just like, if you really want to sell, like, don't push your stuff. Like don't make it completely about people buying your thing. It's like people are listening to this podcast hopefully because they want to learn something, or they want to hear about a story or something like that. And when people come on, I had to say no recently.
That was going to be my next question. Have you ever turned anybody away? Yeah,
I've turned quite a few. People away so the direction we're going now, there's some people that have asked that maybe would have fit our old model but don't fit the new direction. So I've just kind of said no, and I sent them a list of other podcasts they could apply to be on, which I thought was, I don't know. I hope they didn't take it personally. But there's people I've said no to in the past where I'm just like, it kind of pisses me off really when I don't think they've listened to the show at all. And then they're like, I want to be on, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? To talk about, and then it's clear that they don't know anything about me or what's going on. And I'm just like, you've put in zero effort. What makes, I don't know. It's frustrating because you're just like, man.
It's like we were talking about, they're not doing their homework. They're not doing their homework on you.
Yeah. It's just like, it costs me a decent amount of money to produce an episode, plus to put all the marketing materials together, plus schedule everything. And, it's just, there's production costs and marketing behind it. And it takes me a lot of time. So it's frustrating when people can't take 10 minutes or an hour and like listen to a previous episode or like, put together a well thought message. And it's, I don't know. Because I would invest in them if they were here. And I just kind of would hope that they would do the same beforehand. So yeah, favorite episodes. Those are kind of the ones that stand out off the top of my head. But I would say that, having Ben Haggerty and Scotty Russell on, those guys, I've had them on a few times. And Ben's like an insane videographer for like a bunch of like hip hop artists out in LA, and he just kills it all the time. And plus he gives back a ton. Like he's just a very giving person. And then Scotty, yeah. I don't know. I could basically go down the list and tell you why each person was awesome. And yeah, but those are the initial ones that stand out to me is, the last one I did with you, the original interview I did with Ben, first one with Colin. I think Scotty's been on 3 times as well. So Scotty, Dan Gable. Yeah, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but I felt like in a way they all kind of had an impact on me. I had Joe Miller on. She's got an awesome story. Talking with her about, her business and everything. So I don't know. I'm like going through my list of children right now and telling you why I love each one.
Yes. I love it. So what is Trevor's formula?
Oh, fuck. I really want to say something like, it's like, sex, money, weed, something like that. But no, that's not it.
No. Wrong podcast.
Wrong show. That's on my hip hop one that comes out next week.
Sorry. That's pretty great.
Sorry, Mom. No, I would say that it's, I have to spend time outdoors doing stuff like walking with no tech. Like outdoors time for me is extremely important. It's funny saying that as like a kid. I grew up as like extremely pacey. Would get sunburnt just walking out of the house for 5 minutes because I never really saw the sun. And now I'm like throw me on a mountain or an island and I'm happy as hell. So one is like outdoors time. 2 is the quality of my relationships. It's like being surrounded by people I care about that have similar values. It sounds probably fairly odd considering I'm by myself a lot of the time, but the people I meet along the way, the different things that I do, I kind of end up running into people like that have the same values or interests. And another thing that I think this came out of a conversation recently you and I had, and it's where maybe some frustrations I've had in previous friendships or relationships is like I show up for people. Like it's like I'm I would have never said this before, but I feel as if like if you're someone who is important to me and you ask me for something like it, and I'll go bend over backwards to make sure I help, and I think it's also important that people that I consider to be close that I would do that for also would do the same for me. It's nothing I would ever ask or expect in return, But if it's, if it's something simple and they're not willing to reciprocate on some level, like with their intentions and their time, I think that's important too. So relationships, make sure your values are in line with with the people I'm around, and then make sure that they're also there for me as well. Like because it's a mutual thing. I don't expect them to do all the heavy lifting. So those two for sure. Third is probably having downtime. It's like taking time to relax a bit. I don't always do that. But I think it's really important. So I find myself, like, even since I've been back, I've been running myself a lot more than I normally would. And I'm more tired than I would normally be. So I think it makes things more difficult to, like when things pop up, it's when you're well rested, you can pretty much handle. I feel like I can handle most things. I'm like, I'm good. I got this. But when I get tired, I'm just like, damn it. Mm-hmm. Damn it. Like, it just seems like I'm much more responsive instead of calmly proceeding. So I'm sure there's, yeah. So what was it? It was outdoors, relationships, downtime. I'd say giving back is a big one too, because just doing stuff for myself just doesn't work for me. Like, just trying to make more money or without some intention behind it or some, I don't want it to sound like really cliche, but it's just like contributing in some way to something other than yourself. Whether that's like volunteering, just being friendly towards someone, I don't know. I just think that I'm part of my own personal formula is just like that contribution piece. And then lastly, I would say is probably more like health wise, like eating healthy, eating good food, not like dieting. I'm not talking about like eating iceberg lettuce. I'm talking about having like some really nice, like good food that's also like healthy too. So eating well, getting a little bit of exercise. I'm not saying doing 100 burpees every day and, and just only eating kale raw, nothing like that, but just more having like that healthy, like balanced, healthy lifestyle. Like I don't usually eat, as I had like French toast for lunch. I was going to say, I don't eat a lot of carbs or sugar, but then I'm like, okay, maybe a little bit here and there, but it's like,
yeah, but it's a treat.
Yeah. And it's balanced. It's not that I stay active. I walk a ton, exercise when I can, do yoga, martial arts when I can, when I schedule it in, really. So I would say that, yeah, those 5 things. And then even on the relationships part, I guess. So like the 6th one, quality time with those people. It doesn't matter if you have great relationships if you never see anybody or spend time with them. So quality, strong relationships, quality relationships with time well spent in them. So those would be mine. I think I'm going to be laying in bed tonight and be like, oh shit,
I should have said this.
Yeah, I'm like, damn it. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on that or anything that you'd like to add?
Well, I think that you're right that everybody's formula is different. I think we all have I would say that there's a baseline where it's sleep, getting enough sleep, nourishing your body the way it needs to be nourished, and moving it. Those 3 things should be pretty much a baseline for everybody, and then everything over and beyond that. One of the things for me that I realized within the last couple of years is that I do need the sun. I never realized I'm from the Southwest originally. And so I grew up in the sun. And so when I moved to the Midwest, I was like, I don't need the sun. But then after a long period of time, I was like, when I traveled and went to St. Thomas and we were on the beach, I was like, I completely need the sun. The sun is absolutely one of my happy places. And I would have never, and just like other people, they're just like, oh, the sun, I can't be in the sun. And so I think I think there's a baseline for everybody, but I think that there's we all have our different interpretations of what is important to us as far as living the life that we think that is going to give us the true happiness that we want and desire.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that you've learned about yourself that really surprised you in the last year and a half? Where you're, like I just mentioned about loving son and how I never really, that's not a great example, but what is one thing that you really learned about yourself that really surprised you?
Yeah. That's a tough one. Cause I feel like it's been a lot. I've just learned a lot. I don't know if it's necessarily been
surprising.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it has been very surprising, but I'm just not sure, if there's one. I mean, one is like one that definitely stands out is, like I think about when I was traveling across different parts of Thailand and I'm doing some of this stuff and I'm like, I think about who I was like before that. And I mean, I was talking with my mom about this and she was like, I couldn't believe you're doing half of that stuff. She's like, you were scared of like the dark and like you're driving, you're like traveling across the jungle alone for part of it and with other people, like other travel friends. And so I'm not really afraid of a ton anymore. I don't know if that's like learning something, but it's just, I said this to somebody like after I had just left like the jungle in Thailand and I was talking with somebody and I remember saying this and I remember the look they gave me and they thought I was like out of my goddamn mind. But, I remember I was with, one of my travel friends and, we were like driving out to like some temples or something, waterfalls. I don't know, one of those. And, I remember like we're driving out there on this, it's like there's a scooter is like between the size of like a full size motorcycle and a moped. And it's like 2-lane highway, maybe 4-lane highway. I don't know. It would like switch between the two. And, you know, there'd be oncoming traffic. And then you'd see like, so you're driving on the left-hand side. I never knew how to drive any of these like scooters or motorcycles or anything. I learned how to do it while I was there. I was terrified of doing that too, because you could die driving one. Like you get in an accident. And now I'm finding myself driving one across Thailand. And I remember like traffic would be coming, somebody would pass, the oncoming car start to pass, and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be really close. And then another car would pass around them, so it'd be like 3 cars wide, and I was just like, and this happened a ton of times. And I don't know, at some point in time I kind of just stopped. Like I just remember I was gripping the shit out of the handlebars, like I was terrified. And I don't know, then at some point in time I was like walking myself through it logically, because as you're driving you can't like be on your phone and stuff, and it was a several hour long trip, so you have a lot of time to think while you're dodging cars. And yeah, I just remember I had this thought. I was just like, man, I didn't want to like turn around or go back or anything, but it was like, I was like, man, you know, I could actually get in an accident and like no one's gonna come help. Like there's no ambulance like waiting down the road or anything. So there's a good chance we get in an accident. Like I'm not gonna walk away from it. And I think I just kind of became really okay with that. Like just that I would rather have those risks than live a life where I didn't take any. And I probably said it in a way that was a little more dark the first time, and then I realized like, oh man, maybe this sounds a bit extreme to some people. That's just like you kind of accept that like you could die doing this stuff, or like you could, like something could happen, and you kind of just, you know, accept it really. And it's like, it kind of changes everything for you. Yeah, I mean, it just really changes how you see things. At least for me, it did. I shouldn't generalize to other people, but for me, I was just like, well, I'm good, I guess. And then I think about the stuff I did after that moment. Because before I did some things, like I did martial arts camp. I kayaked out in the ocean a bit by myself, and went to some other islands and whatnot. But then after that, it's like the extreme kind of went up a bit, and my how alive I felt from then on has just been completely different. I have felt much more. I'm less concerned about the what ifs, and I'm just kind of doing stuff, doing things. I mean, I think about like I was gonna go hike in the mountains in Albania alone, but then I found some friends and we ended up doing it together. But I was gonna do it with or without them. I was like, I'm going. Anybody, hopefully I meet some people on the way, but no one's signing up right now, so I'm just doing it. I'm done waiting. I'm done. Seeking a company or permission or whatever it is. This is what I want to do. I'm going to go do it. If I fall down and get hurt, I'll pick myself back up, keep going. I mean, I was going to go canoeing alone in the Bosnian mountains. There's a guide and stuff, and then these same guys I met, they went with me on that too, and it worked out great because they're from Mississippi. These redneck guys, they're really, really fun. Shout out to the Delilahs. Yeah, I have footage of that. It was really fun. Yeah. I mean, I was jumping into rapids. I was diving head first off cliffs. That is not the person that I was before. So, a long way to answer that question is I don't necessarily know exactly what that means that I learned. I don't know how to summarize that. It's a little bite, like a sound bite or anything. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. That just made me feel very. I just felt alive, So I guess maybe that's my biggest surprise is I didn't realize I wasn't doing those things before. Right. So now I'm trying to do the best I can. I mean, I'm sure I could still, there's still some opportunities to continue growing and trying things. But I feel like that was a big thing for me.
Yeah. Would you say that maybe taking risks in life is part of your formula?
Ooh, that depends. I mean, for me, I would say yes. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, it doesn't have to be a life-threatening risk. No. Just
so many people are so afraid to even just leave their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I find the unknown and chaos to be exhilarating. I don't know if that's normal, but for me, I love it. I remember thinking to myself and saying to myself before I went, even before I knew I was going to go, I feel like I can get dropped off in a city and with no information and find my way, with nothing. And I've actually had to do that a few times. And I remember the first time it wasn't scary in a, I was scared, petrified. It was more shit, well, I can't call anyone. There's no backup coming. I have to figure this out. I have no information. I just know I can go this way or I can go this way. I guess I'll go this way. And hopefully I'll run into something. Or it's the right way. And yeah, I mean, I can think back to that moment. I wasn't scared. I was it was this moment where I had to kind of think through, am I, it's just my first reaction was, I should call someone. And I'm who am I going to call? First of all, right. Second of all, I have no service. So I can't do anything. All right. So now what? I can't just sit here. And Yeah, so I do think I enjoy that, which maybe is a good and bad thing sometimes. But yeah, I would say it's part of it. Yeah, we can add that as number 7, taking some risks.
Well, I think everybody's interpretation of risk is different. Like yours is more, like you explained, it's probably more extreme than the typical cube worker, 9 to 5, who has a wife or husband and children, and they're not going to be able to do the kind of risks that you're doing.
Yeah.
But my experience with people is that we always have that list of the things that we've always been afraid to do, that have always been something that's too risky and something that's prevented us from, the what ifs that we're constantly asking ourselves, and to stop listening to that and just finally taking those risks, because we don't know what's on the other side, that there could be amazing growth and opportunity. Just like what you've done. Constantly making those risks and putting yourself out there and allowing yourself to experience life versus having life happen to you. I think that there are 2 different types of people. There's people that seize life, and there's people that just sit there and allow life just to happen. And the people that just allow life to happen, those are the people that are working through fear. Right?
Yeah.
Because they're so afraid. So
you have one more question?
I do.
All right.
I have the final question, Trevor.
Okay.
What is your favorite book?
Oh, God. Do you know this answer already? Oh, okay. All right.
Well, I don't know. It might have changed since the last time we answered.
Favorite book. I feel like I asked you this and you're like, God damn it. I think that's why you're asking me now.
Yes.
So favorite, there's two that come to mind. I don't know if they're like my favorite, like, okay, no, one. All right. Easy answer. Favorite book, Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Some people really buy into like the spirituality of it. It's a fictional book. But for me, it really was like trusting myself into, I read it out in Colorado in like the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Perfect place, perfect time. That's why it's been so impactful. I've reread it several times since then. I mean, a lot of celebrities like Will Smith, a few others say that it was like one of the most impactful books they ever read. Second one, that I would say is Viktor Frankl. I know you asked for one, but I'm gonna name a couple. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. That one, I hear a lot of. I was just talking to someone today. They're like, I don't really feel like I have a purpose, and I was like, just go read this book, please. It's about a psychologist who went through. It's a nonfiction book. A psychologist who went through like the Holocaust. Went through like the Holocaust camps. He survived, but it talks about not necessarily how bad his experience was there, but his mental approach to it, looking back, and then discussing like how to, like what the search for meaning, what that means, and basically how to find purpose in life, and how you can, if you don't feel like you can have one, you can just invent one. That's I don't know. That's not a great summary of the book, but that was life changing for me. I should be very careful about how I say life changing. It changed certain types of perspectives I had on things. One question was, that I think about a lot is, if I'm 80 years old and I'm looking back at this moment in time, what decision do I wish I would have made? And the problem is, though, is I know the answer, and sometimes it's really hard to actually do it. But it'll give you very good perspective. It'll give you the answer that you're looking for. It might not be the answer you do, because sometimes it's like the scariest answer and the hardest. But it's the right one, I think, at least from that lens. And I would say a third one that probably no one's read. It's called The Art of Loving by Erich Fromm. I think he was like a social psychologist out of Germany as well. It's not really like the art of loving someone else, really. It's like, it's just like loving in general, loving yourself, he talks a lot about loving strangers. How if you don't have any love towards strangers, you probably don't have any love for yourself. How the best type of love is what's the word? It's like when you expect nothing in return. What is that?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't think of the right word. It's like love. It's like love where you basically give it with expecting nothing in return. We just did an episode about gift giving in that form, giving a gift without any expectation of anything. And I felt like reading that book. It just had a lot of. It's a very short read. It's like 100 pages or something, but it was phenomenal. I wish I had read it when I was younger because it opened my eyes about a lot of things. All right. Fourth one more. One of Colin's books, some thoughts about relationships, very short as well. But he has one quote. I'm going to butcher it. I'm going to do my best. It's like, we're born full, we die full. And it's like our job to find somebody to like share that time with. Like we're always basically enough. We should never be looking for somebody to fill us up or anything like that. It's more our job to find someone to share that time with.
Right.
So those are my 4 book. I know you said 1, but
that's okay.
Those are my 4.
I do have one more.
Okay.
So when are you releasing your fiction?
I'll get back to you. Now, ooh, that's a tough question. I mean, I feel like I have to say something. I have to put a time down or it won't happen. And maybe I need to follow my own advice with the travel stuff and make a smaller commitment than like a novel, you know? So maybe I could release a short story by Thanksgiving. Damn it. Did I just put that on the calendar?
You did. And are you going to put it on Medium or where are you going to put it?
On my private blog somewhere.
No, you have to
I'm
make
kidding.
it public.
You
have to make it public. Medium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've done some writing on Medium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect for you.
Yeah.
So by Thanksgiving, a short story on Medium.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. I'll do it. Damn it. I hate everything right now. Kat, thank you for taking the time to do this last second reverse interview. I was struggling over what to do for this, and I think we turned out like a nice interview here. If you'd like to check out any more of the episodes, head over to theformulapodcast.com. Or if you could give us a quick review over on like iTunes or whatever podcast app you listen to, that would be amazing as well. Keep an eye out for our future Patreon releases. Hopefully they'll be providing some value as well. Or if you have any thoughts on what you'd like to hear from us or what would be valuable, just shoot me an email, trevor@theformulapodcast.com. Kat, do you have any final words or any shout outs you'd like to give for any of your upcoming retreats or anything?
Well, I felt, I was telling you before we started recording that I felt honored the fact that you allowed me an opportunity to interview you. So thank you very much. And I feel so privileged to be a part of your 100th episode. So thank you very much. So if you want any more information about what I do, you can always go to catcantrill.com. I have a couple of different things that are going on. One is releasing my studio online. So stay tuned for that. And then, I have an upcoming retreat actually going to the Netherlands the last week of March. So if you're interested in that, you can always contact me at cat@catcantrill.com.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And look forward to you guys tuning in next time.